Welcome to the Candid Conversation Show. I'm your host, Marilyn Fontaine, artist and creative coach for women who want success and income with ease. Hey, this is Marilyn and I'm in autumn colours and welcome to the Candid Conversations podcast. There's something here. So this is a video and it's going to be a podcast and it's going to be uploaded on YouTube because what's happening is that a lot of my audience don't realize I have a podcast. And they keep saying, oh, we'd love to hear you speak. So if I create a visual, then you will be able to see me and then jump onto the podcast as well. So this is going to go upload onto the YouTube channel and we're going to do this every week. Also, it's much more easier than recording it and then getting it converted. It just does it automatically. Makes my life easier. Anyway, today we're going to talk about emotional recovery. And last week I covered the power of flowers and I spoke about the types of herbs that you can get to soothe your heart and your emotions and your physicality. Actually, let me put the microphone. I want to see the microphone and you can't see. I want to come all professional and podcasty with my microphone, but it's not happening. Okay. So, but you can hear me. So we're going to talk about emotional recovery and what is that? Because yes, we know what plants and flowers that we can use. And if you missed my episode, I'll put the link in the bio so you can click on to where that podcast is running. So, but today we're going to talk about emotional recovery and what types of emotional situations that cause us to collapse or to feel less than. So we know that we live in a society that constantly pushes our nervous system, that constantly pushes our emotions and triggers us. You know, you just have to put on the telly or the radio or go onto social media and you get exposed to so much that really just triggers your nervous system. And, you know, when I think about, I don't really have WhatsApp, just literally to speak to my mum in the Caribbean and my siblings, but I'm on one WhatsApp group, that's gardening group. But it don't bother. It's all about this community garden I'm a member of. So it's all about when's the festival or when there's a meeting. That's all. Apart from that, I'm not in any other group. I do have a Telegram group for my clients, and again, it's so laid back. But I just feel like for me, groups are so stressful. It's almost like everybody goes back to childhood and we start behaving with in a hierarchical system. So for me, I don't need that. If you want to know what's going on, pick up the phone or send me an email. But it gives a lot of people a lot of stress, and a lot of us are regressing back to place when we was young, and a lot of people didn't like school because they felt that they couldn't express themselves and speak their truth. So, WhatsApp and certain groups are making people feel really less than, especially in the family setting. But so that's one stressor is modern living. The second stressor that we have is unhealed situation and traumas from childhood, which is kind of the foundation of everything. And we cover up unhealed traumas from childhood, especially in the Black community, because as much as some people are getting counselling, there's a lot of people that are still counselling is taboo and stigmatized because we should be able to fix it within our community or speak to our family and friends. Well, they're part of the problem, so they can't help you fix. And when I mean they're part of the problem, I don't mean that they are causing it, but in the whole family system, that your family members are co-actors or team members. So therefore, the family, has a underlying commitment to keep that system going. And anybody that doesn't want to be a team player because they feel that family's dysfunction, they would often be the scapegoat or the person that leads. Now, I'm not a psychologist or therapist in that aspect, but I do know a lot about family system. I do have therapy. Um, so it really can impact the way we operate in our family system. So the traumas that we experience, it's better to speak to a professional, because we're never going to get as far as we need to. You can only get so far with your family members helping you. And so all the traumas that come up, not only spills into our family, but our children, our friends, our work colleagues, everybody is operating in this volatile or potentially volatile system in their day to day. And this is why when everybody was on lockdown, everybody was so much more calmer because all we was doing during lockdown was waiting and processing. And so when we was waiting and processing, we didn't have to take responsibility for what was going on because we was told what to do. So the only responsibility we had was to keep ourselves inside, safe and well, and to be healthy. So everybody looked after their body and just watched telly, baked banana bread, watched Netflix, took walks, spent time in their garden. That's all we could focus on because we didn't know what we was going to come out into. And so now we've come out, it's business as usual, but it's added with the traumas of a pandemic. Um, and I don't think a lot of us realize the impact because most of us are still tired. Most of us still don't want to see people. Most of us have switched from extrovert or ambivert into introvert. And that is because we still are in stress response or we're still in recovery. But isolating from those situations, there is also when we've experienced, and again, childhood has made us seek relationships, but we've been in relationship, friendship, or romantic relationship, or maybe professional relationship where it's not been so good. It's been quite toxic. And we have been having a lifelong pattern of experiencing emotional abuse, physical abuse. But I want to stick with the emotions because that impact stays with us. And the reason why we get into those situations is because of a trauma response and a conditioning and the normalizing of being a people pleaser and giving, especially women, to somebody else and doing things in the sake of love. And especially when I speak to the healers and the creators and the sensitives who feel that every single relationship that we get into, we have to go into sacrifice. Now, we have to have compassion and we have to be mindful because we're worried about karma, but we still have to be aware that just because somebody gives us attention, it doesn't mean to say it's love. And I'll speak about this. So I've been in a relationship where I knew where the person was with me constantly, but they were very, very, very emotionally abusive, which I didn't realize until after I came out of the relationship because it was so normalized and it was done over a long time. So it was coercive control over a period of time. And matching that with what I believe to be normal. So, because I'd witnessed that in my life before. So to be with somebody and they've got a lot of problems and they're going through they're going through a lot of stress, they've had a lot of tragedy or trauma. And so therefore, to be compassionate, you have to allow people, you judge the behavior, not the person. But some people are so damaged that they feel that they're beyond therapy. And it is a trauma that's happened to them, but they can't see it and they think they're coping and they're fine. And it's you that's not good. And you that needs help. And so what we do as healers is, okay, I'm going to try better. I'm going to try and do something else. Maybe I'm not being a woman I should be, or maybe I'm not being a friend or the relative I should be. And it's my fault. I have to make it better. And this ties in with our trauma response of being a people pleaser, which we call a fawn response. So in childhood, and also it relates to your attachment style. So if you have an anxious attachment, then you're going to think that is your fault because you didn't have that bonding in childhood. So you're going to try and please this partner so they will be there for you because your parent wasn't, either physically or emotionally. So for me, being in this relationship, I just took it all on and I wanted to make everything right for this person because we connected on so many other levels. If only I could make them not be angry. So I was responsible for their anger. If I behave better, then they're not going to respond to me in such an angry way. Now, as far as I'm concerned, apart from me throwing water over you or hitting you with a stick, I'm not responsible for how you feel. And if I am triggering you, then it's for you to tell me. And if it's consistent, then to remove yourself from a situation, not to tell me what I'm consistently doing bad. And it even got to a stage where I got in trouble for sighing, literally breathing out. And it became a whole tirade. And at that point, I should have left. And I can't blame the person. But if I get, you're saying something to me and I sigh, a human right, yeah, I've got a right to sigh. If he was about to die and I sighed, or you said, then I can understand. But if I'm just exhaling and I'm in trouble, that's not really good. And so that was like a turning point when I realized there was nothing I could do. This person is moving the goalposts. But I stayed. And it wasn't until the relationship was over I realized that maybe I was in an abusive relationship. Maybe I said it this time because I was a coach, I was a healer. I shouldn't have been in this situation. But here's the thing, attachment style is attachment style. So we seek the people that can reinforce our anxious or whatever attachment style that we have to try and complete what we didn't get. Also, a stress response, a trauma response is a trauma response. So I will seek out somebody that I can try and win over by falling. And this is something that's really important. I was not 100% innocent because, again, like I said, I'm not beating myself up. I've got compassion for myself. But deep down, that's what I wanted because unconsciously I wanted somebody that I could look after and be so nice to that I would win them over. And for the first time the outburst happened, that's when I should have moved on. There was no way I was going. I was not leaving this person in hell. I would have gone to hell with them, I think, because there was such a need that I needed to be with this person, but it wasn't, it wasn't love. Not that I never loved that person, but I think it was more about need. It was more about the dynamic. It was more about the trauma response and the attachment style. It was an unconscious drive. So I was conscious that I could not let this guy go, but I didn't know why. because it was in a blur of everything. And there was times when I retaliated and I argued back and I said what I needed to be said, say, and be vicious. But that's when I was incongruent. And I will hit back. I will hit back if I'm cornered. I'm a Leo woman. Come on, with a Scorpio Mars. So I would hit back if I'm cornered. It takes a lot of time for me to hit back. When I don't mean fight, because there's no other, I would have won any fight, but verbally, because I'm not stupid, I know language. I'm British. I've got the irony of the British. I've got the sarcasm, and it takes a certain level of skill to kind of, have be sarcastic back. And when someone walks away, like, did that person say? That's the British sarcasm. It's hilarious when it has to be. But saying that, I wasn't innocent. But it took a while for my brain. It felt like my brain was frozen because it was trauma. And I thought I had to decondition my brain. And it wasn't until, I don't know, just before lockdown, I realized I came to terms that I was still quite angry. After we came out of lockdown and I started to work on my arts council project, I understood why I made that decision to go into that relationship. And it was a lot to do with childhood. And for me, it was really telling that I've got something on my glasses. It's really telling that we choose things. And this is why I don't agree when we spend our time accusing somebody of being a narcissist, an abuser, and all these different things, and we don't do the work. And then we keep attracting the same person and the same person and the same person. And we have to be so vigilant with our emotional healing, because what makes somebody lash out and fight and be abusive, not everybody's a narcissist, but there's quite a few of them around. But we can't run from them because they're going to be among us. But what we can do is make sure we are consistently looking at our emotions and working towards healing our emotions or stabilizing our nervous system. Because I will say this type of person didn't only was in my romantic life, I experienced it in friendships, colleagues, different people that came into my life. And I noticed that they weren't abusive, but there was manipulation and coercion going on. Now, either I'm fucking stupid or I'm such a bright light that everybody comes to me. No. Well, I'm a bright light and everybody comes to me, but that's not it. I do believe I was inviting that in because I wasn't seeing the signs. And I needed to have these people in my life for what I perceived them to bring into my life. And that's why we choose these people or we allow them into our lives. And so it's really important. And it's also familiar. We would have had those type of people in our upbringing around us, because it's all about familiarity. But what I do believe is emotional healing is so important, because it's not about I don't want to be around narcissists. It's just that I don't want to invite. I want to have the tools so when a challenging person comes into my life, I can be able to create a boundary and deal with them in an effective way, because it's not about them. It's about us and what we perceive to be abuse and coercion and all the other things. They may not see it that way, or they could be going through something. But it's really important that we do the emotional healing. And these situations are opportunities for us to grow. Because if we don't see its opportunities for us to grow and move through, then we will consistently and constantly be attracting the same type of people for us to overcome, because we are unconsciously desiring this. And this is why my trauma training is so amazing, because it really unpacks who you are underneath and why these things happen to you. And we're not victims. Yes, we've been victims of certain things that have happened, but we don't have to continue to be that. And so, with the emotional healing that we need, emotional recovery, that really involves us being in spaces where we're accountable. And I spoke about this again last week in my Instagram post, when I posted about just surrendering yourself to a healer for you to be well isn't isn't um, isn't a good thing to have. It's important to have healing, physical healing, emotional healing, but you have to be in co-collaboration with a therapist or a trauma-informed coach or a trauma-informed healer, because you have a history, or we have a history of giving our power away. And so we need to develop resilience and strength and internal power over a period of time, so we can start to feel empowered. Because if we go from being broken to giving ourselves to somebody to repair us, we're just transferring that power to somewhere outside of ourselves. And I did this a lot, even before I met this guy. I would go from one healer to another, and they would be the holy grail. And the beauty of being in therapy for such a long time, and be aware that this situation happened when I was in therapy, but I didn't want to listen to what I was saying in the sessions. You see my accountability. I knew this situation wasn't working for me, but I didn't want to let go of it, even in therapy. That's how clever our brains are. And that's why, really, I don't want to blame anybody for forcing me to be anywhere, because the coercion was there. And I subscribed to that. But what it did tell me in the end is I've got the power within me. And really being in that space with somebody that can support you without being the person that's going to do it for you, it's been invaluable. And that's why I want you to really think about, if you are in a situation like this, or you've come out of a situation. Because I feel like if you're in a situation where there is emotional abuse, I think it's really important that you get the help from a qualified therapist or a domestic violence organization, because I think there's so many different things that could be involved, especially if you live with the person and you have children. So I would say go straight to a therapist or a domestic violence organization. But if you've come out of something like this and you want the support to kind of recover yourself, and also to get forward and enjoy your life, your business, and your creativity, then contact me for a consult. Um, because my program involves belief restructuring. We're not blaming. We don't blame. It also involves power, flowers, and herbs. And I spoke about the herbs for emotional recovery, such as rose, hawthorn, which is good for the heart, but you have to be careful that you're not on any heart medication yet. Your heart has got to be relatively great, good. Lemon balm really soothes the senses. I covered this last week. And rosemary, and you have to be careful with rosemary if you've got epilepsy. But these in herbs are brilliant, or rose and lemon balm and rosemary in essential oils are fantastic. But these are the second. This is the second component that I use in my program. is the oils. The third part is looking at your rhythms. What's your rhythms? What do you like? Because when we're A-type personalities, we self-abuse. So what is your rhythm? Because your rhythm may not be to do a 9 to 5 or standard work that we do. It may be to work in batches and having a rest, because our business and our creativity will determine how we show up in the world and who comes into our life. Because if we're enjoying our business, it will highlight what's not working in other areas of our lives. And then we do confidence amplifying. And confidence amplifying is another component of my business where I've just renamed it. It's called a pleasure prescription. And so I prescribe, it's looking at what are the things that you enjoy doing. Now, how can we build your confidence? What are the blocks? What are the trauma that is coming? So how can we bring joy and pleasure into your life? Because a lot of the times we know what we don't want, but we don't know what we do want. And we sort of ignore the simple pleasures in life. So that's really important. And lastly, we look at how you can generate revenue, because historically, unless you're really an A-type compartmentalized person, but if you have had a battering emotionally, then your financial life would have suffered. Very few women that are making really, really, really good money consistently in a job that they enjoy, in a business that they enjoy, will be sustaining an emotionally challenging relationship. It's not going to happen. I always see it, So if a lot of the times, if somebody's unhappy with their work, they're most likely being unhappy in the relationship, because your business, the spirit of your business feeds you and it brings you so much wisdom. Or when you're in alignment, and that's what my process is called, powerfully aligned. But when you're in alignment, spirit gets rid of the people that shouldn't be in your life. And with that being said, this is it. We're finished. Until next week. If you want to book a consult, I'll put it in the show notes and also on the YouTube. This is Marilyn Fontaine signing off, and bye for now. You want to be part of an incubator of some amazing creative women, then you need to join the highly capable creative one-to-one program with me. To join, you can just contact me at www.mjfontaine.co.uk and book a sales call with me to join this amazing 6-month program where we get to work on your creative business. We also get to work clearing your blocks and also bringing that confidence up to 100 so you can stand in your agency and live your best life.